Hello and welcome to my video diary of the TGO challenge. That's the Great Outdoors Challenge. If you've not heard of it, it's an event, a unique event in Scotland, coast to coast from west to east, nearly 400 challengers from 17 different countries, and it's been running for 43 years. It's not competitive, there's no prizes, it's simply for the challenge of designing one's own route from west to east and doing it within 15 days. So I'm at the start point here, which is the Kintail Lodge Hotel there behind me, and I've signed out in the book to indicate that I've started, and I have to get over and sign out at Montrose within the next 15 days. So I'll keep you posted with what's happening. The weather is glorious, which is a beautiful start to the challenge. I set off in good spirits. After all the planning and preparation, I'm finally underway. The weather's good and I'm feeling strong. Shortly after departing Kintail Lodge Hotel, I drop into the Kintail Crafts store, a useful resupply point for anyone on the Cape Wrath Trail, and I previously visited it when I did the trail. And from there I continue past Morvich campsite, a lovely campsite if you want to stop around here, but I'm pressing on. And then I arrive at the start of the Afric Kintail Way. Now, I suppose technically it's the finish of the Afric Kintail Way because I'm doing it from west to east. It's a perfect introduction to the challenge. It's a beautiful and easy path following the River Crow, and beautiful scenery, lovely weather, and easy walking. So a great start. After about 10 kilometres, the gradient steepens and the route passes waterfalls before bending to the northeast, and I enter Glen Affric. Late afternoon, I arrive at Camban Bothy and call in to see if anyone's there. 4 people are there, but only one of them is a fellow challenger. They invite me to stay, but I want to get a few more kilometres under the belt before finishing for today, so I press on. And not too far afterwards, arrive at Altybeath Hostel, which is the most remote hostel in the UK. I'm not planning on staying there, but going to pitch my tent nearby, meet other challengers, and use any facilities. I arrive at 7 p.m. and pitch my tent in a beautiful isolated spot, though with half a dozen or so other tents scattered around the vicinity. And so that's the end of a successful first day. Good morning, it's the start of day 2. Yesterday was an absolutely glorious day. Lovely sunshine, fairly easy walking, and even though I set off 2 hours behind my planned time because of a delay with the bus to get to Shiel Bridge, I made my planned overnight stop. I have a leisurely start. The clouds look a bit threatening first thing, but they soon clear and it's another glorious day. So the path pretty well closely follows the River Affric all the way along. Beautiful scenery, a really classic Scottish glen in nice weather and easy walking mostly. Towards the end of the glen there is a bit of a steep uphill, and then a crossing of the river to the southern bank which then bends round, and one arrives then at Loch Afrique itself and continues along the southern shore. But at this point, one enters Forestry Commission land, and the walking becomes considerably more tedious. It's on forestry 4x4 tracks, and the forest slopes quite steeply down from the right hand side and then continues steeply down on the left, and it's all very overgrown, making it pretty well impossible to find anywhere to pitch a tent. This is the end of day 2. It was a beautiful walk this morning down Glen Afrique, but I have to say this afternoon and early evening was a bit tedious on 4x4 tracks through Forestry Commission Forest. And this is tonight's view from the camping spot where I'm camping, which you might think, oh, that looks pretty nice, but it was actually incredibly difficult to find anywhere flat that wasn't this sort of terrain here. And so if you look the other way from my tent, you'll see a great industrial machine lorry of some kind. They're doing works, forestry works just along the road. And they parked this van thing on a flat area, and I found a little area, flat grass behind it, which will do me for the night. Shame about that being there. Clearly it's been used before because there's a fireplace down there. Time to get sorted out and then for bed. Well, welcome to day 3. I set off about half an hour ago. Yesterday was, as I said, a long sort of trudge through forest on 4x4 tracks. Very hard to find anywhere to camp. I did eventually find a place tucked in behind an industrial container, and so I thought I won't have breakfast there, so I've come down to this nice spot by the river, so I'll just swing around and show you it. So, very pretty spot, but there wouldn't have really been hardly anywhere here to camp. Anyway, there's a picnic table, so I've just set up and I'm having my breakfast here. And then I'll be setting off up that way towards Canning. My breakfast stop was at the place called Dog Falls, an attractive place, nice river, and small falls tumbling down, and the small visitor centre there has some nice clean toilets, always useful to know when you're wild camping. So I set off from Dog Falls, but the rest of the morning was a relentless uphill slog along forestry tracks until I arrived at Cannock, a small village with a store. From Cannock, the Afrique Kintail route has been rerouted through Carrow Woods to avoid a lengthy road section. This is welcome, and they've obviously worked hard on installing nice new gates and fencing, but the overall landscape at the moment is bereft of interest, as it is just bare land after felling and clearing of trees. The new route briefly joins the A83 before then leaving it on the left, but I decided to continue slightly further along the A83 and take a small road signposted Buntate, which is much more direct and shorter and led me directly to my stopping point for the night at Beernock campsite. This was a rather strange place. It had a very nice modern communal kitchen, dining area, clean toilets, but there was no member of staff there at all. It felt a bit like the Marie Celeste. The glamping area didn't look very glamorous. The hostel looked somewhat abandoned, and I ended up having to camp by another yellow industrial unit type of unit for the second night running. So welcome to day 4. If as you can possibly just hear, little pitter-patter of the rain, so the weather has turned for the first time, but I guess I can't complain after 3 glorious days of sunshine. Doesn't sound too heavy. I haven't emerged out yet. I'm just woken and got dressed, so about to start packing up. I'm at the campsite. Well, it's not a campsite, it's a funny sort of place, but anyway, it's got some toilets and somewhere I can make a hot drink. And then I'll be heading off to Drumnadrochit, and that's the ferry across Loch Ness, and that feels quite significant. Somehow that's a sort of leaving the Afric Kintail Way, a proper waymarked path, and then heading off after tonight into the mountains to continue my journey. I leave the campsite still without meeting a single member of staff, and after a short struggle through some dense overgrown forest, rejoin the main Afric Kintail Way. And this is along undulating forest tracks, and it's clear quite a lot of work has been done to improve the way and encourage casual walkers. So by lunchtime, I arrive at Drumnadrochit, which is a very pleasant, buzzing, busy town right on the shore of Loch Ness. Plenty of other walkers around. So following a lunch and a visit to the supermarket to replenish supplies and phoning challenge control, I head out of town to the small harbour to pick up the ferry which goes across Loch Ness. The skipper is Gordon Menzies, who is a great character and has been ferrying challengers across the loch for decades. The journey takes about half an hour and is filled with his stories and anecdotes about various happenings on the loch. There's only 3 other challengers on board. I had expected more than this. And we disembark on the other side at a rusty old jetty, clearly not used for many years, and clamber up onto the shore. It is then a strenuous uphill walk for over an hour to the farmhouse Alt Naguar. This is a wonderful place to visit. It's the home of Janet and Alex Sutherland, who every year for some 4 decades have opened up their home and their hearts to challengers. It's a most gloriously eccentric old farmhouse, festooned with all manner of curios and memorabilia, like a living museum. And challengers are welcomed with a big pot of tea, invited to camp on the land for no charge, use the toilet and washroom, and best of all, eat Janet's wonderful home cooking in their dining room. Well fed, I retire to my bed for the night. After a delicious cooked breakfast, I pack up, and as I leave, Alex emerges and plays a Scottish jig on his fiddle. What a lovely send-off. The first 3 hours of the day are a steady uphill walk along a road, but the weather's bright and the broom is in glorious full yellow flower, and I can hear the ever-present sound of a cuckoo. From there, my route turns off onto a 4x4 track, but continues relentlessly, steadily uphill to arrive for a late lunch at a locked shooting hut where I have coffee and my lunch, but the ignition lighter for my stove decides to stop working, so from here on there's no more hot food or drink for the next 2 days. From the shooting hut, the track continues uphill further, and then I turn off the track across the summit where there's bogs and peat hags, and it's 1.5 hours of exhausting walking until I finally reach the track leading down into Glen Mazaran. The weather is less settled, and intermittent rain is mixed with a cold wind and sunny intervals. It's not easy to find a good camping spot, but I find a place near the bottom of the glen, tucked in behind a small ridge, and settle for the night with just energy bars for my evening meal. Day 6 begins. I decide to combine today and tomorrow, which are both fairly short days, into one long day and take a full rest day in Aviemore. The path follows the river leading through the Glen Mazaran estate and then turns right across the River Findhorn to follow the other bank, and a couple of kilometres further on it turns sharply to the south and a long uphill climb begins. So, come up from the summit is a featureless landscape with no path, so I follow a compass bearing to pick up an unclear track across a rough boggy section with peat hags, but eventually get to exactly where I had intended and pick up a clear track leading downhill to Red Bothy. This had been my original overnight stop for today, but as I've decided to do 2 days in one and continue on to Aviemore, this is just the halfway point. So I have a short stop here, a drink and some food, and then continue walking alongside the attractive river Dulnane, and then heading east towards Aviemore on the Burma Road, though it's not actually a road but a track. The ascent is described as brutal and relentless in a guidebook, and the track stretches out to the horizon across a featureless landscape. At the top, I'm rewarded with a glorious view down towards Aviemore and beyond to the snow-capped Cairngorms, but still a fair way to go. The path descends into woodland and then some civilization, but the final 3 kilometres are a real chore walking along the busy A9 before I arrive at Aviemore and head to the Premier Inn Hotel, where I'm stopping overnight and tomorrow. It's day 8, the morning of day 8, so I'm over halfway now. Yesterday I had a rest day at Aviemore. That wasn't the original plan. I had intended to just have an overnight stay there, but there were 2 shorter days prior to it, so I combined the 2 shorter days into one long day, and then that gave me a full rest day in Aviemore, which was actually very welcome. Chance to sort everything out in the hotel room, eat out at a pub last night, get clean, and a resupply parcel with more food, but also fresh clothes, and I posted the dirty clothes back home. From Aviemore, I set off on fresh legs and in good spirits and follow the path of the East Highland Way, though heading west. It's a wonderful walk in good weather along springy forest trails and passing the magical Loch an Island. Loch an Island is a magical place. There's these wonderful old woods, not sort of forestry commission regimented plantation rows, and one walks through the lovely woods, sound of the birds, that's the path that I'm on, and then glimpsing through the trees there you can see the loch itself. By lunchtime I arrive at Feshy Bridge and follow the east bank of the River Feshy, heading due south and entering Glen Feshy. It is very quiet and tranquil. Glen Feshy is softer and gentler than the previous glens, with heavily wooded hills sloping upwards. Shortly before reaching the bothy, there is a river crossing to be made on a rickety wooden bridge, but once over it is less than 3 kilometres to the bothy. There are plenty of challengers staying here, both in the bothy and camped all around. As the numbers swell, the sense of community and camaraderie grows. I find a nice spot for my tent and settle down for the night. This is the beautiful River Feshy in Glen Feshy on a glorious sunny morning. Just look at that view up there, up to the big steep sloping wooded hills, and then down in the glen this lovely river. The path leaves Feshy Forest and turns eastward, passing gushing waterfalls and following Geldy Burn. This is beautiful Geldy Burn flowing down here in glorious sunshine and then cascading over a waterfall down there, pouring down there. And the direction I'm travelling, heading up over there. The landscape opens out and becomes flatter and wider, losing the grandeur of the morning and becoming featureless moorland. I continue until late afternoon, when I arrive at Red House Bothy. The sun is shining brightly and challengers are sitting outside relaxing. It is very posh for a bothy, with wood panelling, proper seating, bunks and a toilet. But I'm not staying, as I have another few kilometres to walk to my destination for tonight. So I continue past White Bridge with quite a few tents scattered around to my resting spot for the night at the site of a historic settlement called Tomnham One. The grass is flat, the remnants of old stone circles are still visible, and there are 3 other tenants there ahead of me, but I find a nice sheltered spot to pitch for the night. Day 10 has started. This is now the River Dee, and there's a nice view. It's early morning and a bit dull, a bit grey, and the Linn of Dee is down that way, and there's the path that we're heading along. It is an easy walk along the attractive Linn of Dee, and I then enter the Marlodge estate, and welcome signs appear inviting challengers to call in at the stables for tea and coffee. When I arrive, it is clear many other challengers are like-minded. Inside, tea, coffee and biscuits are provided by volunteers, and the opportunity for a sit down is welcome by many. From the stables, the route crosses the River Dee on a wonderful white painted metal bridge, and from there my route leads me into Braemar for a lunch stop. From Braemar It is a long uphill trudge which eventually leads to Localita Lodge. This is a welcome respite full of friendly other challengers and volunteers serving tea, coffee, and whiskey shots. I resist the temptation to pitch my tent in the garden, but instead press on to the bottom end of the loch and find a lovely isolated spot to spend the night. I wake to low cloud drizzle and a keen wind. I set off along Jock's Road, though it is not a road, and in places not even a path, a long uphill climb. At the top it levels out onto a plateau shrouded in cloud with no discernible path. Navigation is tricky. From the summit it starts its steep descent through forests devastated by Storm Arwen. Jock's Road is still closed because of storm damage, and the signs are everywhere to see. Just look at this devastation of trees cut down, just lying there. Then we've got more trees here just crashed down. I arrive at Glencover Hotel, go inside, meet other challengers in there, and decide I'll have a meal and take a bed for the night. Day 12 starts immediately behind the hotel with a steep uphill climb on a clear path. This leads up to Loch Brandy, which had been my original overnight stop last night. Weather is a bit threatening and overcast, but I meet up with various other challenges on the way up, as this is a popular route towards the finish. Finally, at the top, I'm rewarded with wonderful views across to snow-capped mountains in the distance, and a long descent begins down to a lake and then follows a road until finally arriving at Tarfside, a tiny hamlet, to be welcomed in the village hall by volunteers serving bacon sandwiches and cups of tea. I've arrived at Tarfside, and what a wonderful place. This is the lower camping field, and as you will see, there's tents all around. There's mine, and here we have the upper field, and as you can see, it's like a festival practically there. And up the top there, you may just be able to see at the building a gaggle of people. That's the barbecue and beer that's being provided. Challengers are enjoying themselves in the well-stocked bar with a welcome beer, and then this is the camping field as I head out to my tent for the night. I set off from the campsite in glorious sunshine, following a road along the river valley lined with trees and fields. After a few hours on the road, I branch off onto a footpath leading down to the Rocks of Solitude. This is the evocative name given to a picturesque stretch of the River Esk as it passes through a narrow rocky cleft on the fringes of the Cairngorms. The various gorge sections are interspersed with verdant forest and farmland, and foaming waterfalls are linked by tranquil pools. It is a truly magical place. But the evidence of the damage wrought by Storm Arwen is evident everywhere. Trees lying on their sides, ripped out of the ground. After a welcome lunch break at the small village of Edzell, I continue to the friendly Dovecot campsite, which is thronging with challengers. I pitch my tent, have a welcome shower, and head in for my final night on the challenge. Well, it's the final morning. Good morning, and what another beautiful day. Just look at the sunny weather. This is the campsite with the TGOers starting to camp up, or many pack up already and depart. There's my tent still waiting to go. Leaving the campsite, I walk along quiet and pleasant country lanes, bluebells in the verges, and bright yellow fields of rape brightening the landscape. Past a field where a farmer obviously has a good sense of humour, and then, almost unexpectedly, I arrive at St Cyrus, my finishing point. I hop on the bus for the short ride into Montrose and arrive at the Park Hotel. The hotel is the control point for the whole challenge, where I have to check in. It's a hive of activity, handing out certificates and mugs and t-shirts, and hundreds of t-shirts waiting to be collected. And in the evening, there is the celebratory dinner with, of course, a glass of wine to celebrate. So that's the end of this video. I've done the challenge, got the t-shirt, got the certificate. Thanks for watching.